Hello everyone! I want to thank Swamp Dweller for hopping on this video with me, and I also want to thank his subscribers for submitting these stories. I hope you enjoy them. Now, let's get creepy. In October 1972, my husband, our two babies, my brother and I left Leavenworth, Kansas in our 1968 VW van on a camping trip to a recreational area in Arkansas called Beaver Lake. When we finally got there, we found a fairly remote campsite at the far end of the park. We wanted to be alone, as the babies woke often during the night and needed to be fed. We didn't want to disturb any other campers. Shortly after pulling into our campsite, my brother pitched his tent next to the van. The rest of us were going to sleep in the van. The campsite was in an area with a horseshoe-shaped rocky terraced ledge that rose from around 50 feet to around 100 feet as it curved around behind the four campsites. Because of mature trees and thick brush, daylight had trouble poking into our spot. Fast forward to that night, sometime around 3:30 a.m. I heard some animal sounds on the ridge that I thought were being made by coyotes. The babies were still asleep and all was quiet otherwise. I peered out the window but couldn't see what was making the sounds because it was so dark. Still hearing odd yips and howls, I laid back down on the back seat. Moments later, there was a huge crashing bang on the van wall right next to my head. My husband leapt up out of a full sleep. My brother bolted out of his tent and jumped into the van with us. We were all in a panic, looking in every direction, trying to see what had hit the van like that. My brother finally yelled that he saw something moving behind the van. We all turned, just in time to see a large shadow moving about 20 feet behind the van, from left to right. After about 20 minutes had passed, without any of us seeing movement out there, my husband and brother went out to inspect the van for damage, but found none. We then started hearing pounding steps coming from the brush, about 50 feet behind us. The guys eased back into the front seat of the van. That's when my husband turned on the headlights and stepped on the brake pedal for rear light. Instantly, there was a huge commotion. He started the engine, and that's when, in the glow of the headlights, we could see a hairy thing, 10 feet away and coming towards the van. As it got closer, its silver-tipped hairs glistened in the light. It had a grayish streak from its shoulders down its back to its buttocks. The creature was walking on two legs and was around 7 or 8 feet tall, had a barreling chest and skinny legs. It never gave us a good view of its eyes, so I can't tell you what they looked like. I could see that the face was not ape-like. It was dog-like. Its ears had tufts of fur on top of them, and it was very human-like in its movements and general body structure. It moved slowly and quickly around the back of the van, where it followed the base of the ridge away from us. That's when it let out a menacing huff and a low, rumbling growl, like a dog. Insanely, my husband and brother bolted from the van, trying to get a better look. That's when a shower of gravel came at us. My husband and brother tore back into the van and burned up the road, getting us out of there. I kept looking out the back window, and they looked in the rearview mirrors, but none of us ever saw it again. It just didn't seem like a Sasquatch was what we had seen. It seemed too dog-like in its face and was too slim in its body. I still have PTSD-like feelings to this day due to that encounter.
My husband was on his way to work around 4 a.m. on a rural road, while rounding an S bend when his headlights hit a large, dark brown figure that was sitting about 30 feet off the road. Watching the road, he described the figure as about 4 feet tall, sitting with its legs bent out in front of it. Wolf-like face, large, pointed ears. He doesn't remember if there was any eye shine or not. It was leaning back on human-like arms. My husband immediately felt endangered and floored his vehicle accelerator. This man has no fear of humans. I've known him for 30 years and have never seen him afraid of a natural being. He's hunted and fished since childhood. It took him a couple of years before he told me about this sighting. He said his first thought was that the thing can catch his car, rip me out and eat me if it wants to. He was paranoid and had his head on a swivel all that day. Still, to this day, he cannot drive past that location without feeling some kind of way. The second sighting occurred in 2010 and happened to a coworker. I noticed she was acting strangely whenever we talked about spooky things, so I asked her what was up. She said, "Okay, don't think I'm crazy." Then she went on to tell me that one night, she was driving home from a late second shift between midnight and 1 a.m., about 5 or so miles from where the first sighting occurred. She had to slow down to a near stop to turn on a road that we would take to her home. That's when she began to hear what sounded like running alongside her car. That's when she glanced out her driver's windows and saw the most horrible face. Her first thought was, werewolf. She described it as being black and gray in color, with large teeth. She said she didn't look again, but could hear it running next to her car until she reached 45 to 50 miles per hour. That's no joke on a back road. She was scared out of her wits. After arriving home, she ran to the door, dropped the keys, went inside, closed all the curtains, and did not sleep a wink that night. We're both nurses, and I've known her for about 7 years. She grew up in New York City and is not a storyteller. Neither of these people likes to talk about their sightings. You can see a change in them when their encounters are brought up. I don't need to see one to believe them. I know they exist.
I was traveling Highway 10 from the west coast to the south coast of Florida. I was with my 6 kids and pulling a trailer with all of my belongings and 3 dogs in it. I was in a big SUV, and it was around 2 a.m. The kids were all asleep, and my 13-year-old daughter was in the passenger seat to make sure I stayed awake. So, after traveling Highway 10 for 3 days, I had decided since we reached Florida, we would cut through the state to save some time. So, we got off Highway 10 on an off-road in hopes of getting gas and making up some time. It was along Route 27, Apalachicola National Forest. We came to the first little gas station. It was closed. I was nervous because we needed gas, so we continued on. I told my daughter to keep an eye out for deer crossing the 2-lane deserted highway, because hitting a deer could kill us all and turn us over due to the trailer we were pulling. We were traveling around 45 miles per hour. I remember this so clearly, like it was yesterday, but it was 3 years ago. We had our brights on because the road was dark and winding. A few houses were on that highway, but not many. As we came around a corner in the headlights on the road, there was a lot of blood. Fresh blood. And on the side of the road was this 6 or 7 foot tall creature. It was on its hind legs, hunched over a dead deer, eating it. It did not look up, not even when my headlights hit it. It was using its arms like a human, eating the deer. It had a very muscular body, pointed ears, and a long muzzle. If you ever saw a werewolf, this was it. It had a skinnier lower body, but used its arms and hands just like a human. If it looked up, I would have died. I looked over at my daughter. We were both seeing the same thing at the same time. Tears came to my eyes instantly, and at the same time we both said, "Werewolf!" I sped up because I was scared it would run and jump on the trailer and kill my dogs. As we got about a mile away, my heart was beating so hard. My daughter and I were so freaked out. It was a werewolf. I have never been a believer in werewolves. I don't watch any werewolf movies or have any reason to make this up. And as a matter of fact, until today, I have only told a handful of people about this. There is a werewolf in Florida. Not sure of the exact town or road, but I wish I did know, so I could find out if we were the only ones to have seen this thing. I will live my life wondering. It was between Alabama to Florida, along the Panhandle. I will never forget this night. Ever.
My stepdad lived in Virginia when he was around the age of 8. Right on the edge of the Great Dismal Swamp, according to him, he was in bed one night when the sky was cloudless or just very bright. He never thought until recently whether the moon was shining or not. He saw a beast looking right through his window at him. He said he could see spittle running down its face and eyes were looking straight at him. It was supposedly standing on its hind legs and had cream red and brown colored matted fur and a face almost like a wolf. Other than its snout, its facial features were very human. Its jawbones were high. The structure around its eyes and its eyes themselves were humanesque. The coloring of its eyes, he believes, were yellow. The reason I think this is interesting and possibly valid is because the Great Dismal Swamp covers a huge amount of territory and is hardly touched by humans. Only in recent years have people started to study its inhabitants. The grounds are wet, mossy, and absorb sound, and people have been known to wander into it and never return. Who knows what could be lurking in the unknown? Chills my bones. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that he crawled out of his bed and went straight to his mother's room. In the morning, when they looked around the house, all the windows had ground that was stirred up under them and grass that was yanked out. There were actual scratches in the wood under his window, and paint was missing too. However, as far as they could see, there were no discernible footprints.
I was 14 years old and lived in central Louisiana at the time. My mother had always been interested in the paranormal. She'd buy copies of UFO magazine and watch documentaries on Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, etc. So I just grew up being interested in things like that, at face value. I always believed in them, but I never had any inkling that werewolves, dogmen, or whatever could possibly exist. Anyway, I lived in a mobile home park, which was on a 2-lane highway, Highway 28 East to be exact. It was a long street with a cul-de-sac type of dead end. At the dead end to the left was the only brick home in the park. Straight ahead was thin woods and several trails going off in every direction. To the right, slightly, was a deep ditch that people had dumped junk and trash in, like old washing machines, broken laundry baskets, or what have you. A thin metal wire fence ran from the ditch across into the woods and out of sight. We, the kids in the neighborhood, had what we called a club, where we would all gather to hang out. Some of us had gathered busted or discarded dining room chairs and placed them in the center of what was the thinnest area of the trees. I had come there to figure out where to put everything. Beyond the deep ditch, further into the woods, was a small stream with hills on each side. An enormous old oak tree had fallen beside the stream, on the side I was on. I spotted an old metal folding table near the stream and went down to inspect it. I thought it would be a good item to put in the center of the chairs. It seemed to be in good condition, so I decided to head home. I figured I'd get it the next morning. The next morning, I made my way toward the metal wire fence, which somehow, I don't know why, had been bent on both its top and bottom, inwards towards the center of the fence. I was about to duck under it when I heard the distinct sound of sniffing, so I turned to see what it was. Standing on the other side of the stream was a 7 to 8 foot tall creature sniffing the air. Its head was turned slightly. The first thought that entered my mind was, "Oh my God, werewolves are real." It stood on 2 powerfully built muscular legs, which ended in enormous paws. It had no tail. It had a massive chest as well as extremely muscular arms and hands. The hands seemed to have the same kind of pads that a paw has, but they were arranged differently. It had a wolf-like head and tall, pointed ears. The eyes glowed red. The ears were in proportion to the head. It had a snout or muzzle. It kept sniffing the air as it stepped over the tree trunk like it was nothing. I would have had to physically climb it to get over it. I thought it was coming after me. It stopped and seemed to be breathing or panting, but there was this deep rumble that accompanied it. I decided to get out of there before it did see me and ducked up under the fence. I ran to my bike, which was parked off the road, and pedaled my butt home. I never went into those woods again after that. About a month and a half to 2 months later, we moved to Mississippi. It wasn't until many years later that I discovered the term dogmen. It scared me, but also started me on my fascination with ancient myths, legends, werewolves, and many other non-Bigfoot cryptids.